Hello, everybody. It's us again.
Hello.
Once again with feeling, John, like you want to be here. Like the people listening want to be here. Come on, let's live in that world of make-believe.
Okay. As if somebody's where they want to be.
Hello, everyone. Oh, wow, nice to see you all.
I was doing it it sounded a bit like a kid's show, that, didn't it?
More like the headmaster at school. Do you remember or headmaster or headmistress when you're at primary school? And you go, good morning. And you go,
good morning,
Mrs. Such and Such. Good morning, everyone.
Once again, lifeless. Good morning, Mr.
And then they put some hymns on the overhead projector.
Yeah.
That's it. And off we go.
You'd have a good old sing-song.
Mr. Nichols gets his guitar out, plays his chord.
Of course, the most hilarious thing that could possibly happen in an assembly was when someone put the words on the overhead projector the wrong way around. Oh, dearie me. Oh, the fun we used to have. Unbelievable.
Ayako, my lord. What does that mean? Backwards.
That's good quality analog fun right there.
You don't get that. The kids won't get that these days. It'll just be
They won't understand.
The digital white screen just won't turn on. That's it.
Yeah.
Harmless.
Unless the teacher's accidentally been watching inappropriate material and that pops on. I guess that will be it.
Yeah.
On the overhead projector.
Yeah.
Our holographic teacher was out of phase this morning, Mummy.
Anyway, this week we'd promised everyone, and we do keep our promises.
Yeah.
That we'd have a chat about creativity and where ideas come from and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, we did actually set that up in the last.
We did, and we should know about that really, having worked out.
Yeah,
no, not. We should know what we've done in the previous podcast.
We were there.
We should also know about creativity and coming up with ideas because that was our job for a long time.
Supposed to
wasn't
be
it?
something
Our jobs for many years. Well, all right, then let's talk about creativity and writing. It's kind of what the podcast's supposed to be about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned previously I'd given some training about creativity to a few different media organisations and what have you and stuff.
Yes.
And one of the bits I loved in it was so you'd have these people around a table and there'd be a mix of how creative they were, depending, what jobs they worked in. Some were actual creatives, others were sort of salespeople and what have you. And I always loved asking the question of getting them to write on a piece of paper at the start of the. I was a bit like Darren Brown. Do you know what I mean? Doing a magic trick.
Stick it in an envelope.
Yeah. And they get them to write down on a piece of paper where they have their best ideas. Where do ideas come to them? What are they doing when they do it? And then later on, about halfway through, I'd say, right, I bet you've all, Dave and John, write on a piece of imaginary paper where you have your best ideas.
Okay.
See whether you're typical or not.
Literally our location.
Yes, your literal location.
Okay.
What, do you want I
don't need coordinates or anything like that. No GPS stuff. Just a general
three random words.
General thing.
Right,
and then I go around the group and say, right, anyone that didn't write in the bath, in the shower, walking the dog, driving to work, put your hand up. And there'd be often no one that would put their hand up.
Yeah.
Because those were the top ones.
Yeah.
What were yours too?
I was going to say in bed in the morning or on the toilet.
Right, of course you were.
I was going to say walking the dog, but our dog's dead, which probably explains why I haven't had any good ideas.
You should probably stop
for a
walking
while.
him now.
Yeah, I know. I've just been
because that's going to be disturbing. If kids see you just dragging around this corpse. That'd be weird. You've got to let it go, mate.
That's true. Say goodbye.
I suppose you don't have any problems having to pick the poo up after yourself, do you?
No, just one big bag.
Just imagine some kid coming up to you. Can I stroke him? It's probably best you don't.
Yeah. Does he bite?
I'm imagining taxidermied with those funny
with the wheels,
eyes
little
on
casters.
wheels,
Yeah.
pulled around the streets. Come on, Teddy.
But yeah, so that's where people have their ideas,
Yep.
and then I go on to talk about how it's the subconscious and conscious working together. Mostly the subconscious doing all the heavy lifting, and when you're in that kind of zone, that kind of relaxed, you're allowing the connection between your conscious and subconscious. Because a lot of the time when you're in your normal life, it's your conscious brain that's doing all the work.
Yeah.
But your subconscious brain is massive. It's like this absolute monster of a computer.
Yeah, big spongy thing.
Sat in the back of your head. And it's that thing, when you drive somewhere and you think, how have I not crashed? Because the last 20 minutes I've been completely unaware of driving.
Yeah.
And that's your massive subconscious brain doing its job.
Yeah.
And your conscious brain is just this bit at the front that just kind of looks after your little daily tasks.
Yeah, I often think...
But when you can get those two to kind of flow together and get in the zone, that's what people talk about, being in the zone.
Yeah.
That's when you get your ideas. And for people that aren't training themselves to be creative, so when we used to do it in an office with all kinds of stuff going on around us and what have you.
Yeah.
And being able to put yourself in that zone is a real skill, I think, probably.
Yeah.
Despite what's going on around, rather than having to wait for this natural, organic time, which is when you're switching off in the bath or when you're having a poo, John.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's...
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's very true. It's interesting how sometimes to not have a deadline, not have any pressure on you, you can, make those creative associations. But sometimes if you've got like an extreme deadline, it's like that can be quite powerful as well.
Yeah, I can.
Like somewhere in the middle is not that useful, but if you have a deadline, you've got to come up with an idea right now. That sometimes works quite well.
I think that works because it can help you take your sort of filter off, because there's your own brain. Your brain is very good at like stopping your own ideas. You get halfway through having an idea and you tell yourself, no, that's not very good, rather than like allowing yourself to explore it.
And that's true. That's your conscious brain again coming in with your conscious brain's like the policeman. To tell you how ridiculous your subconscious is being. You go, that's ridiculous.
Having that sort of deadline just like doesn't give you the time to worry too much about whether your idea is any good. You've just got to get the first idea.
You don't sense it in the same way. I was thinking particularly, Tommy, of the time we had to write some GFDS ads.
I knew you were going to say that. That was such a fun day.
Someone walked into the room and said, so we've got the meeting in half an hour. I think I looked up and went, oh yeah, the meeting. What the...
From memory, you played it very, very cool.
DFDS. Oh, yes, the DFDS meeting, yes. And we had to write... Tommy and I wrote some scripts in about half an hour.
We wrote a lot of scripts.
We wrote loads of script. We wrote like 3 campaigns.
Was the creative lady doth protest too much, wasn't it? We kind of really, really laid it on thick. And we've had this other idea and another idea.
Yeah, we went in with mountains of
paper.
The
worst thing was, do you remember the client, the guy? He was such a nice guy. And at the end, he almost like took us to one side and said, can I just say, thank you so much for all the work you put into this. We were just hard work. Yeah, no, you said,
I haven't seen my kids for a week working on this.
And it was like, you two should be on TV. That was amazing. I'm thinking, you think that because we've realised that we've cobbled together these ideas, that if we put everything we've got into the performance of them and the presentation of them, we might get away with it.
Do you know, I don't know if the common factor in this might be John, because we had a very similar experience. Do you remember?
I doubt that, Dave.
Do you remember the, I think it was called Smart Risk or something like that? It was this Canadian group.
Oh, no, I don't remember.
I bet you don't, because you had no recollection of it at any point.
You didn't do anything, John. Dave did all the work last minute because you'd forgotten.
It was there all about sort of encouraging people, yes, take risks, but make sure you're only taking smart risks. And
that rings a bell.
We'd had. I think
John was going to do some stuff for that day, but he didn't get time for his morning poo, so he didn't
exactly
have ideas.
So the sales exec rang us up and went, right, can you tell me these ideas that you've got? And I went, what? And John went, hey. And he was like, well, I'm on my way there now. They're coming now. So we did the same thing, and a similar thing. We came up with like 3 or 4 campaigns of just outstanding quality. But nothing ever came of any of it. And it was all a bit of a blur the whole day. We just rattled out these things, read them to someone. They went, that's brilliant. And then we never heard anything of it ever again. And everyone went to the pub.
It's quite exhilarating. Yeah, that sounds like most days, to be fair.
Although I do remember specifically one day where we'd reached the end of our creative idea-making powers, where we just reached a point where everything had turned to sludge. And we had a ridiculous amount of work to do, and we were piling through all of it, and we were being creative right up to a point, and then it just went off the edge. And it was a moment where we thought, time to go home now, because it was for a road safety campaign. And this was your idea, John. You sat there and you like had this epiphany, and you went, wait a minute. What about a girl? She's been sat in front of a mirror, and she's just spent 2 hours putting her face on, and now because of a car accident, her face has literally come off. No, we need to go home now. We need to go home. Her face. She's been in a car accident, and now her face has come off.
All that makoup wasted.
The brilliant thing, but with that being radio as well, you would have to literally
Exactly.
There's a girl.
You can just show it with some nice CGI or some clever makeup or something like that.
Yeah.
No, you'd be explaining
The ideas
it.
that don't work on radio. Yeah, there's a few.
So where do you think you get your ideas from, guys? When you're doing your writing, when you come up with a story?
I think it's just a sort of. I think what you have to do, or what I have to do, is put all the information that I need, because we've talked about getting a brief right before. All the information you need, put it in there, and then don't try for a while. Just do something else, and it will all percolate through your sort of subconscious brain, and eventually it'll spit something out. The hard part is getting it to do it when you want it to, I think.
I recently watched a TED lecture about creativity, and the guy was talking about the key things that creative people have in common. And it's interesting you say that, because the thing that they do is they switch between tasks quite frequently. So ideally, the situation you want to be in is when you've sort of done your research, like you were just saying, Dave. You kind of done all your research, and then you have to sort of be prepared to walk away from it and just leave it. But the more tasks that you have going on, the more projects that you have going on, the more chance, or the more likely that you'll have a really good idea.
Yeah.
This moving a little bit towards monkeys and typewriters.
It is, but it's sort of true, isn't it? And actually, I think when I work like that, when I'm reading lots of different books, and I tend to read like 3 or 4 books at the same time, like not simultaneous.
Wow.
That would be quite. That would mean you'd need 4 eyes, and they'd all need to be scanning the page.
Held
But you know
open
what I mean?
with those things like on the Clockwork Orange.
But I'll usually have one book like in the downstairs toilet, like book of short stories or something, and I'll have one book in bed, and I'll have one book in the living room, and then if I'm just I've got time, I'll just sit and. But there's something about that, and having lots of different hobbies as well. Then just the more stimulus that you
That's
have.
very true. That's a big part of creativity.
I guess you're exercising different parts of your brain, aren't you?
That's it, exactly. And at some point, you make these connections between things that have no relevance to each other, but there's something about them that connects, or
Creative people have a massive ability to take in the outside world.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah.
In the training thing I do, I liken it to Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Where he's input, isn't it? That's all he wants.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
He just wants to know everything, and that's how he builds his world, and that's how he gets his ideas and stuff. There's a Darren Brown bit where he does his usual misdirection of saying how amazing it is, because he's going to get these 2 London creatives to kind of do what he wants. He sets them a brief for this pet cemetery, and then gives them a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then comes back and says, right, what have you done? And he unveils his, and it's all very similar and what have you. And in those days, and in the trip to the office and everything like that, he's been planting all these different things on the way. Signs in shops, and kids with T-shirts on walking across the road in front of the taxi that he's got sent for them and stuff like that. And he makes it like, he kind of frames it as, wow, I can even do this to these creative people.
Yeah.
When actually, that's a brilliant framing of it, because it's the opposite way around.
Yeah.
Because they're exactly the people that would be absorbing all these little different bits. If you got someone that wasn't naturally creative, they'd just be sitting in the taxi on Twitter or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It makes me worry, because I don't think that I am I don't think I take in much of the world around me at all. I kind of worry about being on Darren Brown and having completely the wrong thing, and him going, but I put all these T-shirts in front of you, didn't you see? Like, no, I didn't notice that.
I spent a bloody
Just a
fortune.
really angry Darren Brown.
There was a man with 2 heads walked past you. I didn't see it. I was thinking about something else.
But maybe you do see it, Dave. That's the point. It's your subconscious that's doing it. That's the powerful bit.
I don't know. I am quite unobservant, or at least my other half says I'm unobservant.
So, Dave, are you playing on your phone? Are you looking up Twitter or something, or are you just sort of gazing into space?
I don't know. I think
he's walking a dead dog, John. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to.
Exactly.
He's not ticking many boxes on the observant thing. He's been walking a dead dog for the last 3 years.
It's difficult to drag him up the curb. But I don't know. I just think I live in a dream world a lot of the time, and I don't notice things. Like Helen will often say, like we'll meet somebody, and she'll say, "Oh, how were they?" And I'll say, "Yeah, they were fine." She says, "What? Don't you think they looked a bit like?" And I'm like, "No, seemed all right." And then she'll say, well, he's got an eye missing or something like that. I'm like, I didn't notice that. Like, did you not see that he's got his arms in a cast? No, I didn't see that. So I don't know if I think maybe I'm so creative, I've gone past noticing the outside world.
It's all gone subconscious.
Yep. Just passes me by.
One of the things this guy said, one of the last things he says in the TED lecture, the guy that I was talking about before, I have to look up his name, can't remember who he was. He says, put down your phone.
Let's call him Ted.
Ted Danson.
Yeah, does he do them all?
Yeah, he just does the entire.
Do different Teds.
He says, put down your phone. And it's a really obvious one, isn't it? But how much of the day do you think you spend?
Did you miss the end of the lecture then? Because you
well, I was literally watching it on my phone. It did make me feel a little bit guilty.
That's awkward, isn't it?
But what percentage of the day? Have you ever looked at your screen time thing on your phone and actually looked at how long you spend on your phone?
No, I just ignore that.
God, no, I don't. No,
Yeah.
I'd rather not.
You need to do it. It's really quite fascinating because it's disturbing how much time we waste.
Yeah. I think it's all part of that waiting for something to happen, waiting for inspiration. Because I was thinking about that. I can't remember if we talked about it before, but this idea of like doing things or going to places specifically in order to create ideas.
Yeah.
So going somewhere as like an idea generator. Yeah. And it's part of that, I think, with social media is that you can just be scrolling through endless reams of nothing in the vague expectation that at some point something will happen that will spark something else.
I think it has the opposite effect, doesn't it, the phone?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It does, but it doesn't stop you searching, does it? That's the trouble.
No.
You still keep thinking, It's like a drug, isn't it? The next hit's just around the corner. It's just chasing that hit of some good content.
Yeah.
So, Tommy, have you got any top tips for creativity?
One of the ones that I always find interesting is the idea of doing things differently. Is that people get in little ruts of what they do, and it can stifle your creativity. So even just something like in the olden days when people used to not work from home.
What?
Yeah.
Traveling a different way to work.
Yeah.
Because you see different things and you're forcing yourself to experience something.
Yeah.
Rather than going into autopilot.
Yeah. And it does make you see things again. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether it's trainable, really, the idea of hyper-observing the outside world. And putting all these bits in your brain.
Well, you've mentioned before, Tom, that you're quite cynical about the idea that anybody can be taught to be a writer or to be creative.
I think there's an amount of, same with anything, whether it's playing football or musical instruments, you can teach up to a point, but talent exists as a natural formation in people's brains for whatever the
There's
skill
a structure
is.
there that exists or doesn't that makes it easier or harder for people.
There's a combination of the two,
point.
and you can.
But I think that also affects your enjoyment, doesn't it?
Yes,
I
exactly.
think a lot of people don't massively enjoy writing or creating art or whatever, and so why are they ever going to practice it and get better at it?
Yeah, but I think also as well when people who don't class themselves as being creative say things like, "Oh, I don't know where you get your ideas from. I couldn't do that." Thinking, well, they're suggesting that we just have ideas all the time. But it doesn't work like that. I think I probably have ideas at the same rate as everyone else. It's just maybe I can do something with them. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things I talk about in the training is how, because you'll always get, you ask people, right, put your hands up if you think you're creative. And you get a 50-50 split in a room. And guaranteed, any accountants or anyone like that will say they're not creative. But creativity is a human quality. Yeah. Humans are evolved to be problem solvers.
Yeah,
that's how we've got to where we are. So in absolutely everyone, there is a core of creative ability,
and especially when you're a kid. Yeah,
and it will vary. Obviously, there's different things, and it manifests itself in different ways.
Yeah, exactly. Imagination or the ability to imagine something is what makes us who we are, isn't it?
Do you sit down to think of an idea for something to write? How often do you do that versus having a little idea flutter in your head?
I do that. I do try and sort of... There's been occasions
I think it's really healthy to do that. I think it's easy not to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
and expect ideas to land.
It's hard, isn't it? When you sit down and go, right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna come up with a new idea. But we have talked before about how suddenly you just hit like a seam. It's a bit like mining, isn't it? You're sort of struggling for ideas, and then you hit something, and then all of a sudden you just fly, and you can't get stuff down quickly enough. Like when I was writing Anything for You, I had like one episode for ages, and I was like, right, I'm gonna write 6 because that's what a sitcom is supposed to be. And I couldn't think of what to do with the others. And then one day, just something happened, and within 20 minutes, I had all 6 episodes mapped out. Like every bit of the plot for everyone just sort of suddenly arrived all at once and just went.
And how long?
How
long was the sort of thinking about it until that happened?
Oh, about 10 years.
Yeah. So you had so you'd done all the groundwork. That's the point, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, but I think it's like it just hadn't got anywhere. It wasn't like I had bits of ideas floating about. I had like nothing.
No, I think sometimes there's got to be a trigger or a catalyst, hasn't there, to kind of all the stuff's floating around there, but it just needs something to. A lightning conductor to
I think you're right. Maybe the ideas must have all been in there somewhere. It all must have existed in my head, but there was nothing to tie it all together.
And sometimes it is just the act of sitting down in front of a laptop, and just having that empty screen and going, shit, you just sort of need to write any old tosh, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Even if it's absolute garbage, it'll just get you going.
Yeah, it comes back to that's the oldest advice, isn't it? Just write.
But it's amazing how often that sort of thing happens in the sort of 10 minutes before I'm supposed to be leaving to go somewhere. I can be sitting down all day and nothing, and then I think, right, I've got to go and pick my kid up in 10 minutes, and then suddenly I go, my God, I've just written War and Peace.
Well, Dave, maybe that's your zone.
Maybe it is. Yeah,
when you're conscious and subconscious because you've got nothing else to do. Maybe it's that one time where when you've got that kind of 10 minutes. Well, I can't do anything. I can't start anything because I'm leaving the house in 10 minutes.
The sweet spot.
Maybe that's
don't have an idea. That's maybe if I think don't have an idea now. That's when the ideas come. Don't have an idea because I haven't got time to do anything with it. Oh, for Christ's sake! Now I've had an idea.
Have you guys ever heard of GPT-3, Generative Pre-trained Transformer, 3rd generation?
No.
I've heard some of the stuff. It's quite handy, isn't it?
I've heard of Transformers, but
I was just thinking about you were talking about it's a human thing, creativity, but there's this, but it's basically I say basically, I'm making it sound like I know what I'm talking
You're
about.
Really not, John. You're really not, but do keep going.
It's basically a very complicated thing.
It's an artificial neural network.
Right.
So it's basically AI. It's been trained on billions of words and phrases.
Yes.
But it's all been harvested from the internet, so you can sort of imagine what it's learning. But what's interesting about it is you can use it for writing articles or fiction writing. It's basically a fiction writing robot. And I think the jury's out on whether it's actually any good or not. But it's an interesting thing. I was listening to a podcast about it, which I recommend.
There's a good Tom Scott video on YouTube about it, actually, where he gets the AI to come up with a theme for that particular...
Right.
And it is really interesting.
It is. It's fascinating.
It's very uncanny valley sort of thing where it's so close.
Something missing.
But there's just something that's...
just something slightly odd about it.
Yeah.
But it's getting better and better every year, like noticeably better.
So what you're saying is we really should finish these books now.
Seriously, I'm not kidding.
We've got about 2 years until the robots start.
Yeah. You just press a button and you've got a novel. It's quite upsetting. That. I mean, it's.
So you could just put your idea in.
Yeah, that's it.
So you could still have the idea, but it would do all the writing.
At the moment, it needs cues. It can't just go off on its own.
Good. But then you wouldn't
to feed something
need
into
that,
it.
would it? Ultimately, you could just plug that into your own brain, and you could write your own book for yourself. So put this little chip into your brain and just go, right, today I want to read a book about sausages. And this AI chip will write a book and read it to you inside your own mind.
Especially for you. And you could even be the hero in it, couldn't you?
Hang on, if we just invented the movie Total Recall, I think we might. Yeah.
But
it's interesting stuff, isn't it?
Well, they mentioned on the podcast a short film that was written by... I don't know if it was like an earlier, less clever version of GPT-3, but it's basically the technology that's available in smartphones. But what they did is they trained it on sci-fi shorts short films.
Right.
And the machine then spat out a script called Sunspring, which was then made into a sci-fi short film and entered for a film festival. But it apparently came in the top 10 films that year.
Wow.
And I thought, God, I've got to see this. Like, it's got to be quite good, right? If it's,
Yeah, you think
come
so?
that high up. Would you like to hear some of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a sci-fi film festival, I think. And this is just the bits, like, from the middle.
So, what are you doing?
I don't want to be honest with you.
You don't have to be a doctor.
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to see you too.
What do you mean?
I'm sure you wouldn't even touch me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Principle is completely constructed of the same time.
It's all about you to be true.
You didn't even watch the movie with the rest of the base.
I don't know.
I don't care.
I know. It's a consequence. Whatever you need to know about the presence of the story. I'm a little bit of a boy on the floor.
God, that's horrible, isn't it? It's like...
Am I drunk?
It's like...
What?
No, but it's just like distilling movies and stories down
Yeah.
into their sort of basic parts, isn't it? And then...
Yeah. It's like,
Like,
you could...
it's like so formulaic. It's unbelievable.
I mean,
It's
it
like
literally doesn't make sense either, obviously.
No, it doesn't make sense, but they're kind of... You could, if you got a human in to change each line based on the sort of, the sort of feeling of that line. I mean, it's like Friends, isn't it? Friends is like there's a basic formula to an episode of Friends. So, like, you'd have this incident would happen here, and then Joey would say something, and then Chandler would say something, and you could just, lift that line out and put a new line in, but the structure stays the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing, isn't it? But just a robot's doing it. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
It is. And actually, if you think about it, most stories are formula.
Yeah.
They are a formula. So it doesn't seem that unlikely that a machine will eventually be able to create a reasonable story. I mean, the guy that was on this podcast that I was talking about, a guy called Arthur I. Miller. He's a professor at UCL.
Right.
His latest book is about AI-powered creativity.
Right, okay. I am Arthur Miller.
And I am a playwright. And he was basically saying it's not a case of if computers become conscious, but it's just a case of when.
Yeah.
Which is quite terrifying.
Yeah.
But they will. He's saying, they will be able to write engaging novels. It does get noticeably better every year, and it's still pretty bad.
Yeah.
I was thinking we should have a go at that. That could be a little task. There's a
What, to build an AI machine? That sounds a bit out of my
build an AI
skill
machine
set, to be
from
honest.
scratch. No, online there is a little. In fact, just let me see if I can find it.
We're sorry no one's available to continue the podcast right now. Thank you for holding. All our podcast hosts are busy at the moment. Please hold and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. While John searches the entire internet, apparently.
It's called shortlyai.com.
Okay.
If you go on there, you can write a story. In fact, let's give it a go now.
All right.
Do you want to have a little go?
Yeah, sure.
Give me a title. What should we come up with?
Are we going to stay in space? I quite like that space theme.
Okay, yeah, sci-fi. So it's the title of a short sci-fi, a sci-fi short story.
Dead dogs can't fly.
Dead dogs can't fly.
Yeah.
Nice. And we just start writing.
Right, okay.
I think there is an option to put like a rough story in, and then it'll start writing. But we can just go from nothing.
All right.
So we
what do you need then? Characters?
A couple of sentences to start it off.
Right. I think Dead Dogs Can't Fly should be about an old semi-retired space pilot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Coming back for one last mission.
Yeah.
But he's actually, this is sci-fi, isn't it? So he's actually dead. And they want to resuscitate him just long enough for him to fly.
What's his name?
Rex.
Goldfinch.
That's probably
Rex Goldfinch.
Rex Goldfinch.
They want to bring him back from the dead for one last mission.
Yeah. They're going to have to build he's going to have to be part robot.
Yeah. So the only way to save all living things from robots is to bring back someone from the dead.
So what do we start with? Rex Goldfinch's titanium finger.
With this finger, here we go again. Here we go again. The damage you could do with a titanium finger, John. Bloody hell. Always the finger.
Pressed the large
Button.
red button on the control panel. Okay, what's next? Give me one more sentence.
We need some peril. We need some peril. He's be attacked, yeah.
Suddenly, he felt the... Should we call it spaceship? We can call it spaceship, so he knows what we're talking about. Suddenly, he felt the spaceship...
Lurch. Can it lurch?
It can lurch, why not? Lurch sideways. One more sentence? Yeah, so...
We're attacking.
Why do I have to be dead, he said.
Not now!
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's the...
Okay. Do your worst, buddy. Write for me. Okay. Oh, it's off. Okay. Why do I have to be dead? He said to himself. The hurtling spaceship now slowly drifted like a leaf in a breeze. His once proud sights and guns now lay submerged under the surface of the sea. Rex had had much pride in his ship. It had been his greatest achievement and his last. He built it out of... He built it out of heavy titanium. It had the latest gadgets. He'd travelled the solar systems from a young age. Somewhere along the line, however, he'd forgotten his dream and came to embrace death. Now he had awoken in perpetual pain.
Bloody hell.
That's what it's written
Bloody
for.
hell. Look at that's... Yeah. How long would we have taken to do that?
I mean, it made some sense.
Apart from
Seriously.
the bit where it said it had all the gadgets, and I just had this, like a coffee maker,
Yeah, and a tin opener.
popcorn machine,
Yeah.
Mr. Frosty. But other than that,
I'm in. I'm on board.
yeah.
Click publish. Wait for...
just send it. Just send that straight to Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean,
It got the gist, didn't it?
Yeah,
There's something there.
God,
isn't there?
can you,
To
yeah, but
start
can you imagine a time where you just sort of, you can say, right, I'm an author, so you send Amazon 2 sentences, and Amazon publishes a book, and other people buy it.
Yeah, 2 really amazing
Yeah.
sentences.
Amazon
Yeah.
self-writes a book and then sells it for 99p.
Do you think then there'd be like in the future though, there'd be factions, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
real
Oh, yeah.
authors, and then the seeders.
Yeah.
They'd just send the seed of it. They'd be like, ugh, you're just a seeder.
Yeah.
You're not a proper author. Just a seeder.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a story in
Oh,
itself. Put
that's
that in
good.
the AI, John.
But then, yeah.
The year was 2043. The author wars were still ongoing.
They wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the real books and the fake ones. But let's call them the replicant books.
Yes.
And then there'd be
Yeah.
special detectives whose job
Yeah,
it would be to
scan
read
through them and
books.
try and work out.
Yeah, well, you get Harrison Ford.
So like basically Blade Runner, but set in a
involved.
library.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least the robots' ideas were new. We just keep coming up with old science fiction movies and trying to repurpose them.
Task for next week is to come up with those amazing first 2 sentences, and but put in a story. And should we stick to sci-fi?
We're gonna do we should do different genres each.
Oh
Let's do
yeah,
a different one
good.
each.
Yeah, maybe.
So Dave, you do a
Okay.
romance,
Yeah. Okay.
Tommy, you take a spy.
right? Yeah.
The spy genre.
John, you should do a war book,
Okay.
war stories,
Historical war book or a...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's an idea, though. What do you think of this, right? So you write your first 2 sentences of your book,
Mhm.
right? And then input them into the AI machine,
Mm-hmm.
and then don't look at it, but write the next few sentences and see, like, the difference between what
Like
you wrote.
consequences.
Yeah, so the difference between what you wrote
Okay.
and what the AI machine wrote
I am
for
not
you.
going
Yeah.
head to head with a
I
computer that is
think that's-
blatantly more creative and clever than I am.
But that's the peril, isn't it? You know?
Yes.
See,
And then we have to guess.
yes.
which was the
Which is we can
computer.
be Harrison Ford
Okay.
in our own Blade
Love it.
Runner
I
thing.
love it.
So we have to see if you read out 2 paragraphs from a book, and we have to guess which is the real one and which is the robot one.
That's good.
We can call it Robot Wars.
Robot words.
Robot Wards.
We need our listeners to do the same. We need our listeners to go to shortlyai.com and do the same thing. And where do they send it, Birdie?
Well, funny you should ask. They could look us up on Twitter at Failing Writers. Or
could the email as well, Dave?
Yeah, they could. I would get in there. They could send us an email to failingwriterspodcast@gmail.com. So yeah, send us your genuine couple of paragraphs of a book, and then the AI version as well.
Have you ever, when you were young, thought you'd invented something that you later found out to exist already?
Sure.
I can't think of anything. Do you have an example?
I did. It reminded me earlier on. At one point, I remember I must have been about maybe 10, 11, and I thought I'd invented ambient music. I had this brilliant idea for just really beats, but just with sounds of the outside world and stuff.
Okay, so you may have actually come up with it before anyone else.
I think it was already done.
Did you put any money into the?
No, I didn't. It was
into
just
the scheme.
I just remember very vividly.
Just
yeah.
A fleeting
I think
idea.
I did it the other day as well when I saw some pigeons in the garden, and then I thought pigeons are like dinosaurs, aren't they? Because birds are like dinosaurs. And then, whoa! Imagine if you could just bring back dinosaurs, and you'd have a hold on. Yeah. Stop it, subconscious. That's stupid. It's already been done.
Interestingly, Michael Crichton was one of the examples in that TED lecture that I was talking about before.
Was he?
There we go.
That for years, he was interested in lots of different things. He was writing novels, but he also trained as a doctor, Michael Crichton, and he also wrote non-fiction about various subjects like computers and about art. And that basically was all the groundwork for the ideas.
Blimey.
For one of the most commercially successful TV shows.
So pulling all these different
ever.
bits together.
Yeah,
from different,
you've got to have a life, haven't you? Which is probably where I struggle. You've got to have a life.
I think they say, don't they? They say
write
about what you know.
Yeah.
So the more stuff you know, the more you can write.
Yeah,
if you don't know anything,
definitely.
if you don't do anything, then
yeah,
you're not going to come up with ideas, are you?
No.
You're not going to put anything together.
But you've got to
you end up writing something that just takes place in one room, which is, I can't stand films like that, where they're just in one place. I can't watch them.
No, I can't think of many.
What about 12 Angry Men? Good movie. All takes place in one room.
Yeah, but at least they're all different people, aren't they? That's the other thing. You've got to go and you got to have relationships, or at least meet different people in order to get ideas for characters and that sort of thing. So anything where it's all in Panic Room or something like that, where it's all in one place. Is that an instant turn off?
Or if it's underwater, yeah.
What if it's just on the water?
That's a 50-50. That depends on the. But yeah, underwater, nah. One place, nah. Hunt for Red October, no chance.
Now on BBC One, the multi-award-winning film that literally everybody loves.
Oh, sounds good.
An Oscar-winning action-adventure.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, this is it.
Set in a single room.
What? Oh, no. Next.
Here on Channel 4, it's time for Come Dine With Me.
Oh, yes, my favourite.
Underwater special.
What? Are you kidding me? Oh, sod this. I'm going to have a nice relaxing bath instead.
What, you mean in a little room, Tom? Underwater?
All right, sarcastic TV channel announcer breaking the fourth wall. Fine. Good point.
We've learned something about Tom. You see, there's a character element, isn't there? Somebody who will not have anything to do with one place. There's a character trait, a quirk.
Although Tom doesn't like going out very much.
Yes,
which is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
He likes
That's
his
why I
own
need
house.
to live vicariously through watching things that have lots of different places in.
I've got a question for you, Tommy.
Yeah.
So we're talking about stimulus, and
this isn't going to involve your finger, is it?
You've talked before about the fact that you don't really read books, which is going to come probably as a bit of a shock to the listeners, I'm guessing.
Dun, dun, dun. No, I don't. I never have.
Obviously, that means that your ideas don't come from books. But
I'm just some kind of genius that pulls them from
I
the
was going to ask you, where do they come from?
Do you know, I was always a bit scared that if you read stuff, then you'll end up accidentally stealing other people's ideas as well.
I think you do.
But not that there's necessarily anything wrong with it. Like you say, that's kind of how things develop.
But you can get pulled into thinking in a particular style from reading particular books. Or I found that, like, there was like one summer I remember reading The Lord of the Rings, and then everything I said was like somebody smote somebody else or go back to whence you came and that sort of thing. That doesn't really work. And then I read a load of Robert Rankin books, and I started talking in a particular style after that. And it's easy to let that bleed into what you're writing as well, rather than just having your own voice, I think.
It's quite nice to experiment, though, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it sort of helps you hone your craft if you've got a sense of how other people speak.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think maybe it's one of those other things to sort of absorb and then give it a bit of time to allow it to seep into the subconscious.
And then you find your own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Tommy, what stops you from reading?
I just don't generally find it that enjoyable. I like reading non-fiction books. I mean, you're talking to a guy here who went for an interview. I don't know if you've heard of a university called Cambridge. A little bit full of themselves.
Although not full of you, as it turned out.
No, well, I went for an interview for doing the English literature course.
Did you read before that particular...
No. And so I went into this interview with this old professor fella and sat in his chambers or whatever you call them. And we sat down. Take a seat over there, young man. And we started having a chat about things. And then he said, what's your favourite book? It's like, so I just said whatever the one we had to read in GCSE English.
Which he will have known was a GCSE.
Exactly. It was like blatantly. It was, Catcher in the Rye or something like that. I think I did actually say to him, I don't really read books.
Was there ever a point you were thinking, what am I doing here?
Yes. I mean, I was kind of, the sixth form I went to was very keen on keeping its Oxbridge
so they
levels of
encouraged a lot
entry
of people.
Up, so anyone that showed any level of promise whatsoever was like, right, come on then, we'll put you in the system. I don't really want to. It's just not my sort of thing.
Yeah, but sometimes I had a similar. I didn't have an interview at a prestigious place like that, but I said completely the wrong thing at a university interview in Bournemouth, I think it was. I went down there for this interview, and I was like in the same group as what was that guy? Was it called Gary Bethel? Gary Bushell? Used to write for The Sun, big beard.
Gary Bushell.
His daughter was sort of going in for her interview after me. And I remember going in thinking, I feel quite good. I feel this is my sort of place. I could get on all right here. I'm quite well educated. I know these things. And the interview went all right. And then he said at the end, in that same sort of, highbrow university lecturer way, so what would you say is your sort of favourite film, the best movie of all time? And I thought he maybe wanted me to say like Citizen Kane or some sort of foreign art house movie. And I went, I like The Italian Job. And he said, why? I just like that bit at the end where the bus nearly falls off the cliff. And I didn't get in there. So sometimes, reading or watching the wrong things can be as bad as not doing anything at all.
It's just admitting to a Cambridge professor that you don't read.
Yeah.
Did you have that thing where you saw him like get his pencil and just rub out your name?
Just a big cross.
No, I think I was already walking out the room by that time.
The whole reading books things. It does surprise me that you don't enjoy reading, Tommy, because you're very good with words and you enjoy words, and I would have assumed that you enjoy kind of as an extension of that, witnessing other people being good at performing their craft. It's an interesting. Maybe you just haven't found your book or your writer. Maybe.
I'm not going to find it by
if
not
you don't
reading
read,
stuff, am I?
But yeah.
Yeah.
But I've just bought 2 books for the first time in a long time. Bought 2 books specifically for the purposes of this podcast. So again, this is helping to get things going. Yeah,
we talked about we're giving Tommy a task, aren't we? Are we starting with Tommy?
I have
Yes.
Well
purchased
done.
the
And
book.
what is that book, Tom?
Yep. We're going to make Tommy read a book.
The book is Take Off
Ooh.
Your Pants by Libby Hawker. Outline your books for faster, better writing.
Cool. So what was our... Because we're setting this task. What's our plan with
I
this
don't know.
task
I just
then,
thought it would
John?
be interesting. I was just mainly just to get Tom to read a book.
Damn it.
Well, we want Tom to read the book and then talk
Exactly. Do a
about it,
little book
don't we?
report.
Do we?
And
Yes.
yeah, help us outline a book. You're gonna save us the effort of reading the book, Tom. Basically,
Outline the book about outlining books.
Yes. Give us a... yeah. Just strip it down. Eventually, we'll just get to a single word.
And then you can put that in an AI machine and it will generate an entire book about outlining books. So yeah, I reckon in 3 or 4 months' time. I mean, it's got quite big writing, but it is 150 pages
oh, it's just
long.
a short
So,
book.
Yeah,
A couple of weeks.
yeah.
So a
Oh,
couple of
that
weeks'
should be-
time.
Yeah,
4 months.
exactly. You'll whistle
By
through
the
it.
end of summer, something like
Yeah.
that, maybe. Certainly before Christmas, I would say. I'd be surprised
we
if
can
it
talk
isn't.
To be
about
fair,
it.
it is a fact book. So yeah,
It is, isn't
Should
it?
be
So
all right.
technically, I should be all right reading it.
Yeah.
I shall read it. I will. I bloody will.
Yeah,
That will
will.
show you, won't it?
So do you have an? Sorry,
So to those...
go on, Dave.
Sorry, John, I was just going to say to somebody who does read, who are your favourite writers? What's your biggest sort of
Ooh,
inspiration?
My favourite writers. Well, I think the writers that had the sort of biggest influence on me wanting to write, probably Kurt Vonnegut, I reckon. When I was younger, my dad lent me Breakfast of Champions. And it actually isn't, I don't think it's that brilliant a book, actually. But I really like the style of it. And then I ended up just sort of piling through all the Kurt Vonneguts. I had a bit of a sort of literary crush on him, I think. And then, but I still go back to them. I still read them. But Slaughterhouse-Five was always my favourite. It's just brilliant. It's the sort of...
Oh my God, can you read a book more than
God,
once?
yeah, you have to. I think you have to really get it, to understand it.
You see, I can't watch things
But
more
bear
than
in
once.
mind, Tom, I've got a terrible memory.
Well,
So,
that's true.
so
yeah.
actually, it's quite
is
important
new.
that I
This is
rearrange. But you could probably read it once and just remember it, but I have to go back to it a couple of times. But yeah, Slaughterhouse-Five is brilliant. Highly recommend that. I think you'd like that, Tommy. It's just the weirdest sort of
Slaughterhouse-Five.
amalgam of
Uh-huh.
it. It's a war memoir, but also a science fiction novel.
Is it underwater?
It's not set underwater, and it's set in different places, and even in different
There's
times.
a lot going for that.
Different times and places.
Wow.
But he's just got a lovely style. He's got this sort of quiet, it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's sort of like a drollness, you know? He's just got this way of
Right.
Is it
observing the world.
like a...
Yeah, that's
funny.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very good at...
Yeah, if there was a laugh to exemplify what you were trying to say there, would that be the
That's
laugh?
probably not selling it, to be fair. But yeah, he's very good. You know how good comedy is very good at sort of looking askance at things and seeing the absurdity in the world. The things that you've always sort of taken for granted, you think, you've always considered normal. But then you kind of step back and look at humanity and you look at what all our preoccupations are and how messed up everything is. And that's what he does really well. But he's very kind and very honest. He's got this way of looking at the world which is just very lovely. So yeah, that's my...
It's a good name as well, isn't it?
Kurt Vonnegut. It is. It's a proper
Kurt
writer's
Vonnegut.
name.
That's like
Yeah.
sounds like a proper person, doesn't it?
It does.
Kurt Vonnegut.
The other thing that I remember reading that really sort of blew me away, and I reckon I was about 16 when I read it, was Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. I read when I was 16, but there's one scene in it where he makes love to, not him, the character, whatever his name is, Jordan or something, makes love to Maria, and it just absolutely blew my mind, because he doesn't actually describe anything, like figuratively, if you know what I mean. It's all just written in this sort of splurge, and it's about as close as you'll come. Come being the operative word, is about as close as you'll come to the actual act. Just by putting some words together. And I do remember thinking, if you can impart that feeling with just like a stream of words, then you can literally say anything in a book, and make it powerful and interesting. I mean, I might post that actually. I'll post that little bit. I don't think. I think if I tried to read it out, it'd just sound a bit silly and pretentious. But it's something about the act of reading it. But it is.
Share it on.
It is amazing.
Share it online.
Share it on our socials.
I will.
Is that at Failing Writers?
It is. That's right. Anyway, what about you, Bairdy? Sorry, are you, of the books that you've read, what have been your favourite? What have been the ones that made you go, bloody hell, that's good? Wish I could write like that.
Do you know what? I wish I could write. I was a big fan of
the big red truck. That was one, wasn't it?
That was, and then the big yellow truck came out, and I thought, can't get any better than this. And then the big green truck.
And then
I was
I was going to do the green truck. How did he think of these things?
What sort of idea generator is he using? I was a big fan of like Lord of the Rings as a teenager. That sort of was the first sort of big book that I read and sort of really got into. And then, but I've always been a big fan of comedy, and I think the book that's made me laugh out loud more than anything else was called The Anti-Pope by Robert Rankin. And I've got lots of Robert Rankin books, and they're mostly really good. He started with the Brentford trilogy, and there's just a scene in that where these two guys, Pooley and O'Malley, go to this pub called the Flying Swan, and they're trying to save the world whilst getting ludicrously drunk every night, which is exactly my sort of thing. And there's just this scene where Neville, the part-time barman, has got this fancy dress night going on at the Flying Swan, and there's a barbecue at the back, and everyone turns up in the same costume, and everything goes wrong, and it's brilliant. It's just
so it's like a proper British farce in a way.
Yeah, it is a farce.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
But with this sort of science fiction stuff going on in the background as well. It's the one thing that I've read and actually had to stop reading because I was laughing so much. And I can still go back to it and read that bit in particular and just piss myself.
I can see how that was an influence on you. Definitely.
Yeah. But I love that sort of thing. But like that's another one where I read a lot of Robert Rankin, and then I found myself, I tried to write something, and I was basically writing a Robert Rankin book. I thought, that's not how it works. I'm supposed to write my own book, not like a version of him. So I had to but it was weird because somebody else read it and pointed that out to me. I was like, this doesn't sound like you, Dave. This sounds like somebody else wrote this. Like,
but I also think that's okay, isn't it? Like if you love something, then it's okay to...
If you love something, you can steal it and try and pass it off as your own.
You're not stealing it, are you? I don't buy that really.
No, I think it's good and important, isn't it, to try and write in different voices and styles and. Yeah,
like I said, it's sort of they all, as the years go by, it all amalgamates into, because you are a product of everything that you've ever heard or read or seen or whatever. So it's just assimilating it in, isn't it? But yeah, I'm also a big fan of like comic books.
Oh yeah,
as it happens, I like looking at pictures.
What we're talking?
Like graphic novel. Well, when I was a kid, my older brother used to get. We had a subscription to 2000 AD. So my dad paid for it, so he would read it first, and then Sean would read it, and then I'd read it. Judge Dredd, that sort of thing. But the guy who wrote that is probably my favourite writer of all time, which is John Wagner. Just ridiculously prolific. So he invented all these characters, and some of these strips have been running for like 30 plus years, and he still writes for them.
Wow.
And he wrote the movie A History of Violence. Have you seen that?
No.
Viggo Mortensen. Yeah. And he's just brilliant. And it's all these other people have come and gone working on that strip over the years, but the John Wagner stuff is still the best. And you can tell one of his strips after all these years. He's kind of like the Stan Lee of British comics, I suppose. John Wagner.
Cool.
Personal recommendation.
Will you post those recommendations just so, because I'll forget them?
Maybe I should. Maybe I'll try to remember myself. So me and you, John, we can post some of our favourite writers, and Tom can just,
I'll read my take my pants off and read that book.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to read it with your pants off. I'm not sure that's obligatory, but...
I thought you had to do everything about it, taking your pants off. Probably should publish an apology to the delivery driver, to be honest then. I thought it was right.
But so the one thing we haven't asked is whether we've actually written anything at all this week.
Good point.
Have
we all been avoiding the question? That's the that might be more to the point.
Because I've written very little. I've written a little tiny bit.
I've been tweaking around the edges. I wouldn't say I've been
from me
writing.
I've been trying to
2-hour slots, John.
They've been filled with podcast stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
we need to stop the podcast.
But I've been trying to get into this thing of like, okay, don't stop thinking that you need to have these 2 hours. Just if you've got 10 minutes, try and fit something into those 10 minutes. But I think that can depend on like what you're actually trying to write as well. Because I've been working on this particular chapter where I'm trying to, even when I describe it, it sounds a bit corny, but I'm trying to pull all these different threads of different bits of story together. And the best way I can think of doing it is like a sort of dream, sort of fevered dream sequence of somebody who's like, dying. But it's quite hard to sort of get into that dreamy zone and write something in like, 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, because it's difficult anyway, isn't it? Because you've got to write it slightly disconnected.
Yeah.
But then expect people to be able to read it
and still make some sense of it,
Yeah.
Join it back up to make sense still.
It feels like a sort of on dodgy ground. I don't know if it's actually going to work, but I kind of figure it's, in my mind, it's the best way to get this particular bit of the story across. But then I found myself wasting time doing stuff. So there's a bit where they go past a quarry, and then because I sort of made the decision to base the book in a real place with real place names, then I started thinking, but there isn't an actual quarry in this particular bit. Does that matter? And I started looking at names of real... And I spent about an hour researching disused quarries of the area.
To be honest, Dave, I think by the time you've actually finished the novel, there is a chance that just natural erosion will have created some kind of...
Yeah. But it's weird, like, the things that I think about. Like, of all the things that are wrong with this book, the idea that someone would be reading it and go, there is this quarry there. I'm not reading any more of this rubbish.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
This limestone, this is a sandstone area.
There will always be one person, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just imagine the review. 1 star. As a geologist. Well, I think we should all make a little promise to each other that next week's podcast, our first question will be, what have you been writing?
Yeah.
And the answer won't be,
To be fair on us, I mean, I know it's easy to justify, but it has been a particularly busy week, hasn't it? But you're right, Tommy. Back on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for next week, we need to talk to the computers and irreversibly bring us all closer to the singularity that will end the human race.
Yep.
And put some sentences into an AI bot.
And God let's hope they're crap compared to our writing.
And pretend that we're better writers than a robot and write our own.
Yeah. Yes, and once again, we should probably implore and plead to our listeners to do the same thing.
Yes, anyone fancy having a go?
Yeah.
See if you can fool us with AI or not in our hot new competition.
Yes, I'll
Robot
tell you what,
or not bots, robots.
We'll put all the details up on our socials at Failing Writers, and then we'd like to see what you've got to offer. Quite enjoyed it. Someone farted on me halfway through. 2 stars.
Hello.
Where's everybody gone?